Welcome to Formula-Driven Conditional Formatting Part 1. Formula-driven conditional formatting adds a lot of flexibility to conditional formatting. One way it does this is by having the formula reference a cell on a worksheet. By changing the value of a cell, one can change the condition by which cells are conditionally formatted. Here's an example using a simple formula. It will highlight, that is, conditionally format rows based on the selected country from column G. As you can see, column G is a list of countries. In the cell G1, which is referenced in the formula, I will type the name of a country. For example, I will type USA. If USA appears in column G, the entire row will highlight. Now I will change it to New Zealand. You can see that all of the columns in the rows that have New Zealand in column G are highlighted. If I delete the value, the same empty value within the range will conditionally format. Since my range goes to row 25 and there are only empty cells in row 23 through 25, those rows will be highlighted. Bring this down, you can see it. This area has nothing in it, and I'm going to change this. You can see that if this is empty and these are empty, they will conditionally format. The formula for this is equals $G5 equals $G $1. $G $1 is the input cell. It is an absolute reference because of the dollar signs before the column letter and the row number. Because of the $G, it will not relatively reference column H, I, J, and so on. It will only reference column G. It is an absolute reference. With the dollar sign before the row number, the row becomes an absolute reference and will only reference row 1, not row 2, 3, 4, and so on. $G5 is in the first row in the range that I have selected. The $G means that it cannot relatively become H and so on. The number 5 does not have a dollar sign before it, and so it is not an absolute reference, but a relative reference. The first row in a range has the distinction of being what the other rows are relative to. Therefore, within the range, it can refer to rows 6, 7, 8, and so on to the end of the range. So, $G5 can become $G6, $G7, $G8, and so on until the end of the range. So, for this formula, all one has to do is to put an absolute reference in the inbox, which is $G $1, and the reference to the column in the first row of the range, that will be $G5. I'll show you one more example, and then I will walk you through building this type of conditional formatting. In this example, in column N, I want to format cells that fall below a certain number. In cell N1, I can put a value. The cell address N1 is part of a formula, and it is $N$1, an absolute reference. As you can see, when I change -22 to -2, several rows are highlighted. So I'll select here. And you can see -7, -5. These are numbers which are lower than -2. We have -13 down there. And of course, I can change it and give another number. To look at the formula, it is equals $N5 is less than or equal to $N$1. This means that $N5, $N6, $N7 individually, if they are less than or equal to the value in N1 or $N$1, then it will highlight. First, I want to explain the difference between regular conditional formatting and formula-driven conditional formatting. In regular formatting, a range is selected, a rule is chosen, such as highlight a value below a certain number, and if that rule is true for any of the cells in the range, those individual cells are formatted with the background color and font color and so on that you have chosen for formatting. So, you select a range, you go to the conditional formatting button, select the rule, and then format how it should look. Regular conditional formatting only affects the cells in the range that meet the criteria of the rule. It does not affect any other cells. In formula-driven examples that I will show you, you will see that range and formula are not the same as range and rule. In range and formula, when I select a range, it represents the individual rows and columns in the individual rows that I want to be formatted if the formula evaluates to true for that row. So, if somewhere in the row where the formula is looking for a criteria, if the formula evaluates to true, then all of the cells in the range for that row will be conditionally formatted. So, for example, suppose I was looking for New Zealand, and this is what it selected. If my entire range is this whole area, and New Zealand is what I'm looking for, then this row will be highlighted. Again, if my entire range is this whole area, it will include those rows. If my range only includes these two columns, all of the rows but these two columns, and I'm looking for New Zealand, and New Zealand is selected, then these two will be highlighted. So to review, a range in formula-driven conditional formatting is a series of rows, and all the columns in those rows you wish to be formatted when the formula evaluates to true. The next most important thing to know is the value of the first row in the range. All of the rows below the first row in the range are relative to the first row. This is important for the interaction between the formula and the range. For example, when an entire column in a range is to be evaluated by the formula will reference the first row in the range. A $sign needs to be before the column letter so that it is an absolute reference for that column. However, there is no $sign before the row number. The fifth row, since it is the first row in this range, will have a relative reference in the formula so that it can become the sixth row and the seventh row and so on until the end of the range. And now I'll walk you through building formula-driven conditional formatting. And I'm going to select the range. And now I'm going to go to the Home tab and choose Conditional Formatting. And instead of selecting these like I would for normal conditional formatting, I will select New Rule. And then I will select Use a formula to determine which cells to format. I'll put in an equal sign first, that starts the formula, and then I will select this cell right here. That is $E$1. That is our input cell. Put an equal sign, and I will select the first cell in the first row in column E. But notice it came in there as $E$5. I don't want there to be a $sign before the 5, so I will backspace over that. So it is equals $E$1 equals $E5. Now I'll do the format. Let's take blue. Let's give it a border. Let's make it a red border. And click OK. So now let's type USA in there. Now I'll show you how to make some changes in which cells are formatted. So I'll select anywhere in here, go to the Home tab, Conditional Formatting, and Manage Rules. So I have $B $5 colon $F $15. So it's B5 to 15, F15 is the range. And you can see the marching ants around it. I'm going to change the F to a C. I'm going to backspace over the F and make it a C. So now it's B and C. The value that was tested for is in column E. We're looking for USA, 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 and down here USA, but the cells that are formatted are in B and C. Let's make another change. Go to the Home tab, Conditional Formatting, Manage Rules. I'm going to put a second range in here. And I'm going to drag to get it because it's a little bit faster. So now you can see I have $F $5 colon $F $15. That's my second range. So I have two ranges. And you can see here's the range over here, here's the range here, and they all reference the fact that USA is in column E. But I'm going to change it back to the original because I just like it. Conditional Formatting, Manage Rules. And I'll change that C to an F. And click OK. And finally, a few words about comparison operators. Here I have equals, less than or equal to, greater than, and does not equal. Below that, I have the sum function, which will sum the value between B34 and D34. By adding a comparison operator, greater than, in this case greater than 100, I can turn the result into true or false. And I can add a comparison operator to several functions, such as average, minimum, maximum, and so on. Thank you for watching.